Now that we've learned how to play the major scale across the fretboard in all keys, let's learn some exercises to help us practice these patterns. And that's the focus of this video, so grab your guitar, let's go. In my mind, exercises and techniques are important to get you where you want to go, and that's to be able to play good music. Sure, there's a danger that you're going to end up sounding like you're just playing scales when you're soloing. But think of it like this. In order to be able to speak, nice sentences, you've got to have the fundamentals of language, like the alphabet, knowing what verbs and nouns are and things such as that, in order to be able to form those sentences that sound good. Think of scales, any scale, sort of like that, the fundamentals of language, only this case, the musical language. And so we've got to be able to get those fundamentals down. And here are some exercises to help us do that. Anytime you practice, it's worthwhile to warm up, whether it's right hand technique or left hand technique or scales or chords. And especially with regard to scales, you've got to get your fingers limber. So let's learn a warm-up exercise. Take a look at the guitar. Okay, so what I do is I assign my fingers to the fretboard like we did previously in learning some of the patterns. One finger per fret. And to warm them up, I'll just run in sequence 1, 2, 3, 4. Go to the next string. And the next string. Now, instead of going back down, descending in this case, I'm going to go a half step up and then go back down. Half step up and go back up. And keep going. And on, all the way up the fretboard, and then come all the way back down. Now by the time you get that done, your finger's going to be pretty warmed up, but we're not done with the warm-up. Check out this second part. What I like to do to get, finger skips, I guess you might call them, is to do the same thing, but this time go 1, 3, 2, 4. Go up a half step and do it backwards. And you do that up and down the fretboard. And that will really get your fingers warm. It'll get them probably pretty tired. But that's okay. You're going to be building up strength. Maybe you can create your own patterns to warm up with. For example, try this one. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's keep going up. Up and go down this time. And we keep going up, half step and half step. That should be a good warm-up then for your fingers. So for the first exercise, let me just talk about technique. When you play your patterns, you want to keep your fingers as close to the fretboard as you possibly can. Let's take a look. So here's something you would not want to do. Let's just take this pattern with the root on the 6th string. You don't want this type of thing where your fingers have a long distance. You don't want that. What you'd rather have is to keep your fingers really close. And that's going to allow you to play quickly whenever you want to increase for speed. Now start off slow and accurate, and then you can increase your speed if you keep your fingers close to the fretboard. I'll call that exercise number 1. Exercise number 2 is to play each scale pattern that we learned across the fretboard, one key at a time. So we'll take this first pattern that we've been working with. Let's take a look at the guitar now. And we'll start on G, and we'll just work our way descending from the bottom to the top. And when you get done, play the corresponding chord that is the key, or G. Now let's go up a half step and descend. A flat. Go up a half step. A. Down. B flat. And we just keep going up the fretboard as high as we can and then come all the way back down. You want to do that with all the patterns. So say, for example, I want to do the third pattern. Well, the third pattern has the root on the 5th string, and so I'm going to go ahead and bring it down here. That means I'm playing in D. Run the pattern. Go up a half step. E flat. On and on and on. You want to run each pattern that way, practicing going up and down the fretboard and up and down the pattern, playing the corresponding chord that is the name of the key each time you get done with the pattern, so you can hear how the notes belong to that particular key. The third exercise is actually beginning to connect these patterns together. This is where it really comes together when you're playing solos. What I would recommend is taking two patterns, and we'll start again at our familiar spot. And what we're going to do as we look at the guitar is we're going to connect strings. So I'm going to take this first pattern and the second pattern and just play the 6th string and make sure I know those notes. All right, 5th string. 4th string, 3rd string, 2nd string, and 1st string. Now that we've connected each individual string, let's combine some strings together and begin to connect that way. You don't have to play each of the patterns in order, but rather pick where the notes belong on those bottom 3 strings. Like, for example, something like this. Okay, so I connected those 2 patterns on these bottom 3 strings, and I can do the same thing with the top 3. And that would be an example. Now once you've connected 2 patterns, add the 3rd. So now I'm going to connect these 2 plus the 1 from the 7th to the 10th fret. And again, do it string by string. So let's just take the 6th string and make sure I know where the notes are. Okay, let's do that with the 2nd string, I'm sorry, the 5th string. And the 4th string. And you'll do that with the rest of the strings as well, connecting now all 3 patterns. And then take maybe the bottom 3 strings and play notes for all 3 patterns, maybe not in any order, but just find them and see how that works. So for example, Once you're done with the first 3 patterns, connecting them, you feel pretty good about it, add the 4th. And then add the 5th. And that's going to take a little bit of work, a little bit of time, but I know you can do it. And you'll be rewarded whenever you connect them all on each string and then together. The 4th exercise is really doing all of the previous exercises, but now with an accompanying music background. So what I recommend is recording chords in the key. These are called diatonic chords, and we'll explain that a little bit later in the next video, but it just means chords within the key. And just play some little phrase or song that you can record and play back over and over, or maybe record a lengthy section, maybe 5 minutes worth, and just play it back so that you can play these scales and connect these patterns over chords. So let me give you an example here where I'm playing G, E minor, C, and D. Let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, here we go. E, C, D. Let's just run the scale pattern. Let's take a look. Connect. Now let's connect some of these patterns together. Okay, so that's one example of connecting these patterns together, but now over some type of musical context. Let's try it again. This is going to be sort of a different style of music, and that's a good way to do it, to record different pieces and different styles. And this would be a D, a G, a D, and an A. Let's hear what this sounds like, and then we'll practice now in the key of D. To the G, to the D, to the A. Okay, here we go. How you do it. You have this musical background and you add the scale. Okay. One final word, a reminder. When you're practicing these scales, really concentrate on playing the pattern correctly. Make sure you hit the right notes. Secondly, really concentrate on keeping your fingers as close to the fretboard as you possibly can. And thirdly, when you are playing these patterns, concentrate on what key you're playing in. As you connect these patterns, think of the key so that you know where you are on the fretboard when you're playing your scales. Thanks for studying this lesson with me. Exercises to help you practice these patterns of the major scale across the fretboard. In the next video, we're going to learn some techniques and some exercises that are going to force your fingers to go outside of just playing scales, but playing the scales in a real musical and tasty way, if you will, so that when you do play your solos, you don't have that danger of sounding like just playing scales up and down, but rather you're going to be playing some really nice notes over the chords you're playing. If you've learned from this video and you liked it, please subscribe if you haven't already and give me a thumbs up. Thanks for attending. I appreciate it. Now, go grab your guitar and have some fun playing it.